Hi and welcome to Rose Red Homestead. I'm just home from work. Look what I found on my desk today, just a few minutes ago. That Jim, I'll tell you, he's something else. He brings me these roses for no reason, just to do it. And I get surprised every single time, so it's fun. Rose Red Homestead. Today we are going to do green chilies. And we're going to freeze dry them, we're going to dehydrate them. Then we will show you how to treat them after they are completely dried by both methods. We'll be making some powder. And then I will have a recipe for green chili enchilada sauce, and we will mix up some enchiladas at the end of the video. So we need to get started, that's a lot to do. So we'll be back in just a moment. It is wonderful to have green chilies in some kind of powdered form or some kind of dried form, either dehydrated or freeze-dried, that will outlast the cans so that in a grid-down situation we have lots of flavor options. And of course, if you're like us, we love Mexican and Tex-Mex mixtures, and green chilies are a big part of that. Jim said he was going to bring me some more green chilies, and look what he did. I had no idea he was going to bring me 6 giant bottles of these green chilies. These are 40 ounces, cut more than a quart. So I have 3 dehydrator trays that I can use because I have these fruit roll-up plastic trays. These jars are among the most difficult to open that we have encountered, and so I pre-loosened these because we learned the first time that they don't come easy. So this is more like a sauce than it is similar to the ones that come out of a can. The ones that come out of a can have more distinctive little square shapes as the chilies are chopped. These are just kind of a green chili sauce, and they work just fine. So I'm going to finish filling these 3 trays and get them into the dehydrator. And then we will be back in probably 2 days when these are ready to go. But I'll be back in a moment and we'll fill the freeze dryer trays. So it ended up being about a half a jar per tray. So now we're going to fill our freeze dryer trays. So we'll see how this goes. And with freeze drying, the only batch that we've done, we did 4 trays of this last week, and it took about 28 hours to do. And I fill them almost to the top of the rim, and it holds about a quart of food if we fill it almost to the rim. I'm actually going to fill it not quite to the top because it's so viscous, it's going to take a little while. Okay, so we will fill these trays and get these out into the freezer, regular freezer, to freeze overnight. And then first thing in the morning before I leave for work, I will pop them in the freeze dryer, and they should be done in about a day and a half. So I'll continue with this off camera, and we'll see you in a couple of days when these are done. I just checked the freeze dryer. It's on final dry, but it still has at least a couple of hours. We are going to go ahead and make our green chili enchilada sauce. And so I have our little propane stove out here. We've got a back door open a little bit and our alarm in place. For safety's sake, this one is safe to use in your kitchen with those precautions. I have our cast iron saucepan, and the flame is going, and the oil, I have 2 tablespoons of oil that is heating. This goes together pretty fast. And so just as soon as it barely starts to smoke, I am going to add a half a cup of chopped onion and 2 cloves of minced garlic. Okay, here we go. I do not want these to brown. I want them to just get soft. So I'm going to turn the flame down quite a bit, and I'm going to put the lid on. Stirring it up just a little bit. We have a few getting brown, that's okay. We just want them translucent and soft. This takes about 4 minutes to get it to this point. The next thing we want to do is we're going to be putting in 3 tablespoons of flour. We're just going to stir this around, and the flour is going to coat the onions and kind of absorb that last of that oil. And what we are wanting this to do is we want that flour to turn a little bit golden brown. We want to sort of cook the flour until it's golden brown on the onions. Next, we are going to add 2 cups of chicken broth. Now, this is my home canned chicken broth. I'm going to add it just a little at a time so that I can stir and whisk to be sure that no lumps are forming with that flour. All right, we can now put the whole thing in. Now I'm going to add the spices. I have 1/4 teaspoon of cumin, 1/4 teaspoon of oregano, 1/4 teaspoon of pepper, and 1/2 teaspoon of salt. So I'm going to sprinkle those in and stir that around. So here are the green chilies that we just peeled off of those dehydrator trays, and I have 1/4 cup right here. This is actually 1/3 cup, but I have 1/4 cup in here. And they're just in these little postage stamp slices. And in our trial run, I put 1/2 cup of these in, and it was just a little too hot for Jim and me. So we're going to start off with 1/4 cup. Now these will rehydrate and expand. I have accounted for that by adding a little bit of that extra chicken broth. So that extra chicken broth is for the rehydration of these green chilies. And this will take a few minutes to get everything rehydrated. If you are going to make this with green chilies right out of the can, not dried, then you're going to want to reduce the chicken broth to 1.5 cups. And you will want to put in 1 cup of the chopped green chilies. Now we're going to let that simmer for a little while, probably 10 or 15 minutes. Here are some adjustments that you can make. If that's not enough heat for you, you could add more dehydrated if you wish. You could add powder if you've made some powder, or you could drop in, if you've made some freeze-dried, you could drop in some more of the freeze-dried. Now I recommend starting with 1/4 cup of the dehydrated and 1/2 cup of the freeze-dried. And I will put that in the recipe that I'm going to include at the bottom of the description of the video. So we'll see you back when this has become green enchilada sauce. The green chilies are rehydrating and breaking up. You can tell by looking here. It's boiling nicely. The sauce is a tiny bit too thin, but by the time I have it open to the air, and so it's going to be evaporating as it boils, and once the rest of the green chilies absorb the rest of the water, it will be about right. This is my test batch of the green enchilada sauce. This is the one that we put the 1/2 cup of green chilies in, and then when it was all done, I used my immersion blender to make it a little bit more smooth. And that's optional. You can leave it a little chunky like the one in the pan is right now, or you can blend it into a smooth sauce. So we'll be back when this one is done and we decide what we're going to do with it. This is pretty good stuff. I've had a few little tastes. If you look closely, you can see that all of the green chilies are hydrated, and it's thick and lovely. What we like is a smooth sauce, and so I'm going to use my immersion blender and get it that way. All right, that's pretty good. Not perfect, but that's okay. It is good enough for us. I've already washed the counter with ceramine, which I always do. So here's how this process works. Now, I've done it this way for years and years and years. You may have a different way of doing it. It doesn't matter at all as long as the job gets done. I'm going to take some of our home canned chicken and just move it to this other bowl. Because we're going to be doing chicken enchiladas. And this chicken works perfectly for that. So we'll see if that does it. If not, I'll be back for more. I've set up a little assembly line for me right here. I just steamed these tortillas, corn tortillas, in the microwave for about a minute. I'm going to dip them in the sauce. The sauce is warm but not super hot. Put them on this plate. Bring over some chicken. Put on the yogurt. And this is plain Greek yogurt. If you prefer sour cream, get it in the little tube where you can squirt it right down there in a line. It's perfect that way. Then the cheese. We like lots of cheese. Then roll it up. And in the pan it goes. All right, I will continue with this. I'll do one more. I'm going to put just a little bit of sauce in the bottom of this pan. I've oiled the pan, so it should be just fine. Here's the chicken. Yogurt. Cheese, and roll it up. Same side down in the pan. All right, so here we have 5 enchiladas ready to go into the oven, except we are going to slather them with all the leftover stuff. The sauce and the makings that are left on this plate. Top with cheese. And in it goes in a 375 oven. Until the cheese gets all bubbly. So we'll see you when it's all done. Well, it has been 3 days since we put our green chilies in the freeze dryer, and it was the longest cycle that I've ever had with anything. It was a total of 41 hours, and it didn't finish until late Saturday night. We don't do any videoing on Sunday, so it is Monday, and we're now ready to go forward with it. Now, the interesting thing is that we already have done, I've shown you what the freeze-dried looks like previously, and we've already taken the green chilies from the dehydrator off, and we used them to make this green enchilada sauce. We had another disaster with this. I've shown you making the enchiladas. When I took them out of the oven and tried to scoop some up to show for our little thumbnail at the beginning of the video, I dropped it and it just messed everything up. Fortunately, nothing hit the floor, and so we ate them anyway, but they're not picture perfect for sure. But they turned out beautifully and really delicious. We have eaten every bite. It was 2 meals for us, so that was just great. And then we also have shown how to make some powder. Now, I can tell you, just with a little bit of experience that I have now using these dried versions, I much prefer the dehydrated and the freeze-dried in the non-powdered state. I will certainly use the powder, and many of you I'm sure will too, so I'm going to show you how easily this powders, but my preference is to keep almost everything in these little chunks. I like, for when we use chilies, I don't like it to disappear into the dish that I'm cooking. I like for it to see the little chunks. And so that's why I'm wanting to keep the dehydrated as dehydrated and the freeze-dried that way without powdering them. So this is how they turned out. We did 3 trays of green chilies. 2 of the trays were very, very dry. This one was spongy. It just felt like a sponge. And so I cut it in half and put it in my dehydrator, and it dried, finished off drying just fine. Now we're going to go ahead and powder some so you can see how lovely it is to powder. But then I'm going to keep the rest in these little postage stamp sizes so that we can just toss them in various recipes. So this is very light and airy. It almost floats away. So this is one of the easiest powdering jobs of all the foods that we have done to powder, and I love how this powders. So don't hesitate to powder it if you prefer green chili powder. And it dissolves in just seconds when we add it to things. So this is going to wrap up our video on green chilies, both dehydrating and freeze drying, and then an idea of how you can use them to make green chili enchilada sauce, which is fabulous. And then these are wonderful to just drop some in any recipe you would like to. So hope you enjoyed this, and we will see you at our next video.